Let's get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our session this morning. I'm Carrie Allen, Director of Partnerships at B2B, and today I'm going to be talking about how to develop successful partnerships in the membership sector. So a bit of background about me. I've been working with membership organisations, professional bodies, associations, and other not-for-profit organisations for the last 13 years. My day-to-day is that I manage the team at B2B, and we help our clients to identify opportunities for revenue generation, and also we help them to set strategy and policy and criteria, review some of their current partnerships and their approach. We pretty much do everything in that space that helps them to develop and deliver relationships that help them meet their strategic objectives and help them do things that they can't do on their own. So myself and the team at B2B, we work really closely as an in-house function, and given that we work across so many different organisations and industries, we've got a real range of experience on building partnerships that range from everything from exhibition and events right through to larger strategic campaigns and initiative relationships, different tenders as well, and building out different supplier relationships to help our clients do that. So we're currently delivering and building partnerships for a number of professional bodies at the moment. They include the Royal Meteorological Society, the CIPD, the Chartered Institute of Internal Auditors, FSB, Federation of Small Businesses, Birmingham County Football Association, and the IWFM, who are the Institute for Workplace and Facilities Management. So a real combination of different size organisations in terms of membership and staff, but also a real mix of industries and sectors and professions. Today's session, I'm going to be running through some of the different types of partnerships that exist. What can be in your partnership portfolio. So what are those elements? What are those activities? I'm going to talk you through how to package some of that activity together and develop partnerships that stretch across some multi-channel or multi-activation areas. We'll cover some of the key benefits that you can be highlighting, and also how to value, so how to price and value some of those opportunities and what some of the principles are around that. And then I'll also share some examples of what other membership bodies are doing. We'll definitely have time at the end for any questions, so please do drop them into the chat as we go along, and I'll pick them up, or at the end I'll run through and have a look at any key questions. So let's get started. Let's start off with how we define partnerships. So we define partnerships that is a third-party arrangement, and whether that's commercial, as in a cash injection into your organisation, or it could be a cash equivalent. So that's where it's a contra base, or it could even touch on things like joint ventures as well. So the high level, there's about 5 that we split partnerships into when we're working with clients. So the first is strategic alliances. So that covers things like your learning and training partners. Perhaps you've got research partnerships, such as with Ipsos Mori or YouGov, or media outlets that you work with on a close day-to-day basis. It also covers things like your key employer relationships or any market partners that you have to enable you to reach and engage with new markets. It includes government and policy relationships or stakeholders that you might be working on. You might be working on different committees or working groups, and you're building a relationship there. And also includes things like your relationships with other professionals or trade and industry bodies that you work with closely that form part of your supply chain. We would also include some of your larger campaign partnerships or foundation or grant relationships in that strategic alliances category. So if you get a big foundation injection, or there's someone that's supporting and funding a program of work, we would put that at a strategic level. Business partnerships covers more enabling partnerships, so things that help you to increase efficiencies or to offer a stronger membership offer or benefit. So You might have technology provider partners. Your publishing partnerships would sit there as well. If you work really closely with your CRM or website or learning management or content management system type organizations, they're enabling you to do things on a much more efficient level, and they need to be managed in a similar partnership way. Also, if you've got jobs board relationships or affinity partnerships as well that bring you in revenue or joint venture type activities, we'd put that into that business partnership arena as well. Commercial partnerships is pretty broad, so it can cover everything from content partnerships or research partnerships and sponsorships. It can cover lower level campaign partners or training center arrangements. A lot of you might have training arrangements set up or accreditation schemes or other delivery partnerships that enable you to deliver some of your services or solutions that you offer to members or non-members. So I definitely put those types of arrangements in this commercial bracket. And there's probably a few others that you might class into that, but they're the main ones that we see occurring regularly with our clients. The fourth is sponsors. So your more traditional award sponsors, conferences, member events. You might have guidance or technical content that gets supported by sponsoring organizations, webinars and podcasts, blogs. You might run annual or regular dinners or have SIG or regional events that occur. You might also have different community groups where they run activity that you get sponsored. Anything that sits in that networking or peer learning side of things. You might have hubs on your website that you align sponsors to, or dedicated newsletter and communications. So that more traditional sponsorship arrangement across a broad range of activities sits in that sponsor bracket. And the last category is tactical relationships. So you might have exhibitors or advertisers. You might have recruiters that do job postings with you, be that in a magazine or through a jobs board. And you've got a supply directory potentially where companies advertise. So anything that sits more at a tactical level would sit within that fifth category. And often they'll link. So it might be that you have an organization that sits across a couple of these. So they're not siloed. But most of them, you'll have an organization that sits or fits into one of those category areas. This next slide to run through with you really goes into a little bit more detail of what some of your partnerships or portfolio opportunities are. So many of you may already have training revenues, event revenues from delegates and or sponsors. You might source sponsorships across things like your awards or events, or generate revenue through advertising. So in our experience, some of the bigger new revenue streams come from some of the other activities, programs and projects that you have planned that you might not know or you might not consider being an opportunity. So obviously there's some principles that we work to, and there is criteria and policy to make sure that what you're talking to partners about is relevant and appropriate, especially when it comes to things like research or policy work and content or product-based arrangements. There's obviously things like rights and IP and due diligence or procurement that needs to occur around any of those product and solution areas. However, the ownership and control is really important, but ultimately there are some really strong activities that we see membership organizations delivering on a day-to-day basis that offer strong new revenue source opportunities. I've split them down into kind of the key high-level areas here. So insights, that includes things like surveys or reports. You might run annual benchmarking, things like your salary survey, for example. Also things like hackathons and other forums and roundtables where you're breaking down a topic or an issue with your members. All of those activities are of real interest to partners. especially when you're providing support back to membership with practical hot topics, challenges, any issues, etc. So keep an eye out for planned areas that sit in that insight space, because you can shape opportunities for partners to support that can either bring you in revenue or support you with the work itself from a contra perspective. There's a range of different ways to structure those relationships, but that insights area is definitely a big area that we see that's not tapped into by professional organizations from a commercial perspective. Content and guidance, again, similar to insights, but it covers more of your viewpoints, blogs, podcasts, on page, on website copy and content, downloads. You might be running legislation updates, website content, running special interest group content specifically. Anything that covers off real content and guidance, again, of real interest to partners and organizations, especially when the topic area fits with their objectives. Events, some of these will be familiar to you already, and you're likely already commercializing that, especially things like events and conferences. But there's a range of different events that you're running that you could be packaging together, perhaps into other activity that provides both strong member engagement and non-member community engagement as well. Campaigns. These tend to be high profile planned programs that you're delivering that drive your professional or industry or sector agenda forward. And there's a really important alignment there for right fit partners to this type of work, especially the next two topic areas. So campaigns and research and policy, really important about having the right organization aligned to that work. But it could include everything from big agenda and voice work, public engagement, public affairs campaigns, big areas that you're driving forward. For example, we're seeing a lot of big campaigns in the area of ESG in regards to climate and environment and sustainability, diversity and inclusion. So they're big strategic longer term partnerships that you're building that align corporate organizations to your programs. So there's lots there, but it tends to be planned for activity instead of creating things there for a sponsor to come and be aligned to. Research and policy. So industry research and polling or public viewpoints and policy work is of real interest to partners. So you might be running and delivering consultations or working groups or policy reports or viewpoints or providing recommendations and briefing papers. So when you look at that activity and you'd like to do more with it or expand it further, identifying right fit partnering organizations that can help you to do that is quite an untapped area in the membership and professional body space. And we have a slightly different framework that we work to, because obviously it needs to remain independent. It needs to be credible. It needs to be robust. But you can absolutely build relationships with organizations that don't call any of that into question and enable you to do more with that program of work than you might be already able to do as a team, be that through resource, capacity, investment. The last two areas, products and solutions and training and learning, more partnerships and commercialization that brings new tools into your organization. Perhaps it's new learning programs or product licensing opportunities. You might have certification or endorsements or an affinity platform that could be built out. So these areas present a real opportunity that in their own right, if you build the right partnership with the right commercial terms, can bring in additional revenue into your organization as well. And same with training and learning. So taking those capabilities beyond your profession, building out your learning and training opportunities and offer. You might have more business to business corporate training or a consulting offer and other products and services that you're looking to build out, and building commercial partnerships that enable you to resell or training joint ventures. You might also include something like your foundation and grant work here. this all enables you to build partnerships that can take your training and learning offer to the next level. Obviously, all these categories don't sit in isolation. So partners are generally looking when we can pull elements from all these areas together to create a higher value opportunity. So creating intelligent partnerships that blend elements is really key to creating partnerships that last, that deliver return on investment, and that when they're measured, have the impact that you're looking for. So for example, at the moment, we're working with the Federation of Small Businesses, the FSB, on a campaign that's driving forward late payments for small businesses. It's a planned program of work. They're going to be doing some research. They're going to be building out a web hub with practical guidance and information, but also they're looking to deliver some practical webinars, some new reports, running some face-to-face masterclasses with their members to help them. And also they're going to be incorporating some finance elements into their awards program and into their regional community events. So packaging all these elements together centered around late payments as a topic is enabling my team right at the moment to build a really comprehensive partnership offer that we can take out to organizations to get them to support and commit to supporting that program of work through investment, but also through sharing content and insights and information and bringing other things to the table that enables FSB to really strongly deliver that program of work, all the way from a grassroots level up to strategic policy and initiative work. This brings me on to the next slide, which covers value and income. So not all partnerships purely bring a cash injection. So the late payments, as an example, the partner that we're looking for in our criteria is also able to bring strong expertise and industry knowledge. They're able to bring data and information and industry understanding to the table. And also, we're looking for large corporates that have a strong reputation and a really strong media and PR team so that they can activate and share and give a stronger reach to the initiative once it's launched. So when we take a step back around what sponsors are really looking for from partnerships and what partners can bring to you as a membership organization, and when they're embraced at a strategic or organization-wide level, income or cash in hand is just one benefit that can come. Obviously, your more tactical arrangements like advertising and sponsorship, much more cash-based income in return for rights or deliverables. But some of those more strategic partnerships and perhaps things like your training and supplier relationships and others, you'll be looking for other things and other benefits that can be brought into your organization. So income, step one, we've already covered that around additional revenue. Expertise is also another really key area. So can that organization bring knowledge, views, guidance, a wider network, a wider reach? Do they have external expertise that you can leverage and utilize throughout the course of the partnership? Same with new markets. Does that partner organization that you're looking to work with, do they have entry or access or an existing audience or market that you could be tapping into? So a good example is we did some work with the AAT, Association of Accounting Technicians, and they were looking at all their new markets that they wanted to be reaching into and delivering training and support. So we built out a framework for them to engage with some of the key regional markets they wanted to engage with and built relationships with local organizations to support that engagement with new audiences. So local industry groups and bodies and things like chambers of commerce, for example, that had an audience that AAT were looking to not just grow membership with, but also sell training, support, learning, products and solutions to. Building relationships with local on-the-ground organizations that already had a network was a key priority when they were building out those supplier relationships. And it was one of the areas that really brought to the table so that they could engage with audiences in those regions straight away to help that growth. IP and data is another really key area. So does a partner bring IP, data, content, information to the table that you can leverage during the course of the partnership? Often when you're building research type partnerships or arrangements, this area really comes into play there. Obviously, whilst also retaining your independence and credibility of your data, but often partners can also bring that to the table. Profiles are obviously a really important area. Partners can help amplify your voice beyond your professional body and your membership or your immediate network. Partners, if you build it into the partnership framework, can also really magnify out and include bigger reach to media, PR, public affairs. They can bring weight and access that you might not have. And asking them about how they can do that, how they're going to be promoting and activating the partnership, for example, is a really good indicator of how they're going to be leveraging it themselves. And they might have some bigger teams than you do, or perhaps some relationships that you can look to leverage to increase your voice, increase your impact, increase your stakeholder engagement that you're looking to achieve during the course of the partnership. Brand association is obviously a very big benefit to a partner, but it can also be a benefit to professional bodies as well. Positive brand association and reinforcement can increase industry awareness, increase marketplace reputation. It can put you in front of audiences or groups that you've never been in front of before. Perhaps they have clients or prospective client groups that you can be positioning yourself in front of. So that can really drive impact via the right partnerships. But obviously, this area around brand association also really factors in ethics, criteria and policy, your partnership policy, and also your ESG agenda as an organization. So that area links really clearly to having a partnership policy in place that looks at areas like brand association and reputation. And the last area is content. So the benefit of some of these partnerships is that they can bring guidance, information, existing content that you can repurpose to support your members to develop out their skills or their understanding in key areas. So always look at how you could be gathering, if you know that an organization has fantastic content or fantastic information, how can you build that into the partnership framework to get that included into it, but position it as a benefit back to the partner? So for example, you could say to them, there's an opportunity for them to share their existing information and content with your audience. But at the same time, that enables you to have access to that content and information to be able to share out with your membership as a new information or new insights that you wouldn't have had yourself. And it means you can just repurpose that without having to write it all from scratch. All these areas obviously are underpinned by the important areas of maintaining credibility, maintaining independence, but also spotting where partners can bring benefit to you. And often that gets a little bit forgotten about. There's a little bit too much focus on the income side, and we and the team really take a step back and make sure that partnerships are bringing, if not all of these areas, but in general, at least 2 or 3 of these to the table in any partnership that gets developed. We've covered quite a lot around partnership structure and the framework, and you might be thinking that's great, but how do I identify these options? How do I get there? This slide gives you a little bit of an insight into our proven approach that we apply to our client work each and every day. So it looks a little bit simple, but these are the real key planning and considerations that we use to identify and spot opportunities. So we always start with the why. Why are you running this program of work? What are your key drivers? What are your key objectives? Focusing in on programs that are already planned or already on your objectives or your strategic plan as an organization means that straight away you're already looking at opportunities that meet your strategic objectives and that align to programs of work that you've identified that members are asking for, or that your industry, or that you need to deliver as an organisation. So we always start by saying to our clients, why are you delivering this program? What are the objectives behind it? Because that then means we're also starting to get an insight to match companies to it. So starting with that's always really important. And we do that by having regular sessions with colleagues and departments in our organisation. So go and talk to your colleagues. Try and embed and get yourself built into those planning stages so that they're talking to you and you have an understanding of what programs are coming up. So talking to colleagues and keeping open dialogue and communication around what plans and programs are coming up is really important. And we build that in right from the beginning so that we've got a sense of what's going on, and it's not someone's coming to us and saying, oh, I need a sponsor on this event next week, please, because that means you're going to be shoehorning in a sponsor. It's very late in the day. They might not have budget available. So having as much time as possible is really important. So that's why we always start with that area of why, which then leads us into who and the customers. So who are the customers that you're looking to engage with this program of work? Is it all of your members? Is it your senior members? Is it members that work in specific industries or sectors? Is it your younger career-driven members that are newer into the profession that you're supporting with their skills development? Who is that audience? And it can be membership side, or it could be the general public. If you're running more of an awareness-driven campaign, it could be policy and regulators and government. It could be the media to gain bigger traction and build that awareness and impact and voice as an organisation. So customers I'm using as a real loose term to describe everyone that you could be engaging with through a program of work. But it's important to define who the customer is, because you can also use that as a selling point in any partnership or sponsorship conversations. What is next? So what is the content? What is the topic or theme or area that you're going to be driving from this? And what are the things you would like to cover? So if it's research, it might be what are the key questions you're looking to answer? If it's about practical guidance or information for members, you might have some specific capabilities you'd like to cover off that map to your profession requirements. What really just defines what the topic is and what you're looking to cover. That then feeds straight into outputs. So what are the formats it's going to take? Will there be a report? Will there be a briefing paper? Is there a policy recommendations document going to policy and stakeholders? Are you looking to build an e-learning offer from this content? Is there going to be blogs or insights or events coming from it? You can create one thing and then activate it in a number of different ways and repurpose that content you're using. So often we see format or outputs covering quite a few areas. Very rarely is it, we're going to cover this topic area with this one single event and then that's it. It's much more about using that content more cleverly and repurposing it and distributing it, which takes us on to the last point. So how are you distributing it? What's the platform that you're using? How are you going to be sharing this out with the customer audience group that you're looking to target? And that also falls part of your partnership offer, because a partner would be profiled across those distribution points that you're activating to achieve the program objectives. It's a really simple flow that we take, but it works really well to uncover and identify what some of those opportunities are that our clients are delivering. The little diagram at the bottom reinforces that when distribution, audience, and topic all align, that's when the optimal value sits for partners and sponsors in terms of income and other arrangements. So the real value is where those three areas align and ticks their objectives, but also means you've got a really strong opportunity in your hands. So if there's one thing that I always come back to when I'm looking at something to say, how commercial is this opportunity? Is this something that I'm covering? Is there clarity on the distribution? Is there clarity on the audience? And is there clarity on the topic? And with those three basics or fundamentals, you can pretty much then know that you've got something there that's going to be fitting and of value to a sponsor or a partner. This next slide covers off valuing and pricing, which is something we get asked about a lot in terms of how do I value something? How do I value this program of work? And these are the factors and the principles that we look at. We don't use all of them, so it's not about having every single one covered, but definitely there's the ones on the top line, I would say, are your priorities, and the second line are also really important, but you can start to cover them off more once you've got a little bit more of a sense of your market, what sponsors and partners are looking to invest, and then you can feed that back. So once you've a little bit more established, all of these areas can come into play when you're looking to value and price something up. But these are a good starting point. So audience demographics, as we've just covered, understanding the demographics of who's going to be associated with the activity is really important. So you're considering factors such as their location, their industry or their profession, or their seniority and their purchasing power. So an event, as an example, that engages with your senior members, you might value that slightly higher than an event that supports some of your early career members, for example, because you know that those senior members have more decision-making power. They are more valuable to a sponsor or a partner. So consider some of those factors. Reach and exposure. So evaluating the reach and level of exposure that a partner will have is an important factor when valuing up an opportunity. So you might be considering metrics such as how many members are going to be viewing this, what's the attendance, which social media channels are we pushing this out on, what's our online engagement going to be. It also slightly depends on the topic area. So something that's fundamentally important to every single member versus something that's very niche for a specific segment of your membership, you might price a little bit differently. So something that every member needs to be understanding and reading and reviewing, such as sustainability as a topic area, you might be able to price that slightly higher than if you're focusing in on a really specific specialism area that, say, only a third of your members deliver on a day-to-day basis. So keep an eye out on that reach and exposure and make sure it's balanced against the program of work. Brand alignment is also another key area. So this is about assessing the value and the image and the fit that you have around that. It's also really important about the level of profile that you're offering them throughout the activity. So back in the day, you would have a gold, silver, and bronze sponsors at one of your conferences. We're moving away from that now, but then you would have had, gold was more expensive than bronze because they had much more higher profile brand alignment and exposure. Now it's a little bit more, you're trying to look at the brand alignment that they have. So where else are they being showcased? So for example, with CIPD, we are aligning research partners to their programs of work, and we ensure that some receive title rights in those elements and others don't, depending on the program, depending on the topic, depending on the relevance and appropriateness of that occurring. But that means that we price things a little bit differently because the brand alignment is at a different level. Similarly, when we're working with the Chartered Institute of Internal Auditors as well, I'll be looking to increase the investment because we've introduced a lockup logo around a couple of their big events. That means the headline gets built in at every stage in event promotion, as opposed to some of the lower level supporting sponsors who are supporting topics or streams at the conference. They just get aligned to that stream itself. So they're not across every single promotion that occurs in the lead up to the event, just on those topic stream areas when we're talking about those or we're promoting those to our members. So again, there's greater value in how the brand alignment is positioned and at what level. Activation as well. So this comes down to where they're being promoted, whether that's on-site presence, on social media, exclusive content, promotional activities. It really impacts the value that you put on a partnership. if you know what those activation points are. And the activation also covers things like IP and data and licensing. So if it's a partnership you're building that calls into question IP and data and anything like content or licensing, then that should be pulled into at this point, because that needs to be considered when you're pricing up that opportunity. Where is the sharing of data? Is it two-way? Is it joint IP and ownership? Are you providing a license to that partner to use, for example, your senior training programs and modules? Looking at that and looking at activation also includes where IP comes into it as well. So review that when you're looking at your pricing as well. Duration and exclusivity is a little bit straightforward. So the length of the partnership, longer term partnerships obviously provide more sustained exposure. They also provide you with more confidence in a partnership. And exclusivity obviously enables a sponsor to have none of their competitors near an activity. So if you're looking at a partnership to take it to the next level, looking at duration, so offering a longer term partnership, gives you a sense of mind that you've got someone locked in on that activity and you can compound that income, but also it gives a sponsor the chance to lock out their competitors from having the opportunity to be involved. And longer term doesn't mean you can't change your mind. So in your T's and C's, that's where you can add in break clauses and the ability to move away from the partnership if at any point reputation, there's a change in ownership, you decide you want to change the program of work. Add in some of those, longer term partnerships doesn't mean that you're stuck in that. So really review your contract T's and C's, because that also means in your duration, you're not necessarily stuck in an arrangement that you don't want to be in long term. One of the things that we pull in a little bit when we're looking at exclusivity and duration is also the partner themselves and the program of work. So in the first year, you might do a lot of work building in a partner, and you don't want that relationship to end after 1 year because you've put so much work into incorporating them. So as an example, we've recently been working with the Royal Meteorological Society across their Weather Photographer of the Year competition. Standard Chartered are the exclusive partner on that competition. And we developed that to be a 3-year partnership because there was a lot of integration work and a lot of resource and time put into incorporating Standard Chartered, not just from a logo perspective, but from brand, tone of voice, look and feel. They had very strong climate messaging that we wanted to incorporate alongside our own. So the team have done a lot of work into building that partnership together over this first year. And we're now really confident in building that into the second year of delivery and building that strong working relationship. So the decision to have a 3-year partnership on something like that meant that the next 2 years and all that hard work in the first year meant that the next few years can be about developing that partnership further. Measurement and analytics. So you might be able to measure parts of the partnership on certain activities more so than on others. So if you're able to demonstrate evidence back to a sponsor or a partner on brand awareness, lead generation, sales, social media metrics, having access to data and analytics is a real crucial part to not just assessing ROI, but also you might be able to value something a little bit more if you know you can deliver a really strong ROI business case to the partner after the activity. So if you're able to do that, then that's a real bonus. Costs and budget. So some activities, you know you need a certain amount of money to deliver it, but don't only value your opportunity based on how much it costs you. It's about the value to a sponsor. So do keep that as a consideration. Make sure you're not underselling something, but also consider in that commercial value any hidden costs, any additional costs, but also what the value is to a sponsor. And often the value to a sponsor is much greater than what it costs you to deliver that program or that event or that activity. Negotiation flexibility is a key principle, so always be prepared for negotiations. A lot of organizations understand that the needs and expectations of parties, you need to be a little bit flexible to find the right fit partnership. So having some flexibility or customizing your partnerships to have a little bit of enhanced value, or that you're able to say, not a problem, understand your budget is only X. Let's review the framework to bring that in line for you. So having a little bit of flexibility when you're building out your pricing models, very useful to do right from the beginning. Sponsorship history is keeping in mind if you're building relationships with any sponsors that you've got a long-standing relationship with. So there might be long-standing partners that you've worked with in the past, or you might be able to examine what you've valued it for other or past sponsors. So make sure you're also increasing that in line with inflation. You're increasing it in line with things like event costs, or it might even be things like catering costs or access, or your ability to distribute learning and content might have increased in terms of your costs. So look at the history of what it's been valued at in terms of the sponsor history or the partnership history you've had on those activities. But also keep an eye on if you've had working with partners that you've worked with before. So they might have only, I don't know, paid £15,000 for an opportunity in the past. You've then incorporated additional reach, new channels, and 2 new events to that series that they partnered on in the past. So you'll need to increase the investment, but they'll have in their mind what they paid for something similar before. So you need to be able to demonstrate and talk to them about why the investment has increased really clearly against the partnership offering that you're talking to them about. And the last point links to policy and criteria, but also when you're valuing or pricing opportunities, keep in mind any legal or ethical standards that you need to be considering. And is there any risks associated that might impact? So that one's more about your policy and criteria, but do make sure that you've got that in a step when you're looking at any considerations you need to. These are pretty much the main elements that we look at when we're valuing our opportunities. So definitely keep these in mind when you're trying to value up an opportunity or a program of work. I'm going to talk you through a few examples now of some of the work that we're doing, and I've touched on some of these organisations in the session today. So the CIPD have had a really strong research and content program for many years. We started working with CIPD about 14 years ago and really looked at how they were building partners into their programs of work and into their research and content. Right back in the very beginning, they were actually paying corporate organisations to help them deliver on programs of work. And we helped them to say, actually, you shouldn't be paying a corporate organisation. They're getting incredible profile and reach and access into your valuable HR audience. We need to flip this model. So some of the initial things we did was actually flip those arrangements and went back to those corporates who are getting all this value and saying, we think you need to be investing in our programs of work now, because we're providing you with a platform to speak and engage with our membership, profile in media or in PR, brand alignment. So over the years, we've really been able to adjust that and build a number of long-term high-profile partnerships for CIPD across ring-fence specific programs of work. And the partnerships we develop for CIPD provide them a 6-figure sum each year that they reinvest back into the research program itself, but also into other member services that they're looking to deliver. With CIPD, it's all about the topic. So we have really clear topics and themes. For example, people analytics, reward, health and well-being at work, HR operating models, AI and technology. We stem it all from the topic or theme area and then build out the partnership from there. So we work really closely in a lovely spot between their research teams, their policy teams, their comms and content team, to bring that all together into a partnership framework that's really multi-channel, but it all stems back from topic. And we also help them on day-to-day relationship support and renewals as well. So a lot of the partnerships that we've set up for CIPD have been going for, some of them have been going for 13 years. Some of them are about to renew into their 5th year. Building and having partnerships on track means that you're able to renew them as well. And we all know that renewing a partner is a lot more resource and focused than going out to market to find another. So it's a similar principle to membership development. So retaining a member is lower cost than recruiting in a new one. So being able to renew those partnerships and deliver valuable partnerships is always really key to it. And that's really embedded into our relationships with CIPD and those partners that we've built out. The British Chambers of Commerce, they have had a fantastic ability to develop long-term partnerships with organisations. So they've established a really strong sponsorship and affinity program. They initially were always going to the same sponsors and the same partners for their activity and their programs. And we did some work with them to look outside that existing sponsors, the same companies every time, to identify what programs of work they were running that would enable us to go externally to some new partners and some new organisations. So we worked across their insights, research and campaign programs to generate new income. But the most important thing was to drive new partners that then supported new stakeholder engagement, new regional and national impact. So a lot of these partnerships are linked directly to regular research and content programs. And these were all new partners on programs of work that they didn't have before. So their objective was very much around identifying programs that they hadn't noticed or that they hadn't realized was an opportunity. We built out a partnership framework and shared that out with new organizations and worked really closely to map out who that sponsorship universe was. And they were then able to really establish a new revenue stream with these new partner organizations. Lastly is a real specific content-driven strategy that we built out with CIPS, Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply. So CIPS had a knowledge centre, which they were actually paying a third-party content supplier to deliver for their members. And they realised that that relationship wasn't enabling them to be reactive to what members were looking for. It wasn't meaning that they had any IP ownership or control over that content. They were paying a supplier and their members got to access a library of content. But CIPS, who are a knowledge-driven organisation, realised that they really wanted to have that IP and content as their own, that they owned, and they were able to ensure it was reputable, it was robust, and that they could be a little bit more reactive to big topic areas that members were raising with them. So we worked with them to flip that model. So we removed the third-party supplier arrangement and implemented a content strategy for CIPS that enabled them to provide relevant content to members. And obviously CIPS couldn't suddenly hire a whole range of content writers to help them do this. So we actually built the partnership model to build content partnerships with organizations that had the information, that were credible and had the reputation in the industry. And obviously CIPS reviewed that information and made sure and topped and tailed it and rewrote parts of it. But ultimately, content partnerships with a range of corporate organizations enabled them to provide that information to their membership, and they built some really strong corporate partnerships with a range of organizations across topics and areas, not just on different buying categories and topics that their members needed information on, but also on things like their salary guide, which actually Hays partner on and still do to today on their career development and salary career survey each year. So the partnerships enabled them to provide members with not only industry practical topic knowledge areas on things that they needed to be aware of, but also on things that help them in their career and to help them showcase the value of having a CIPS qualification and training, which was another big objective for them as an organisation. So the partnerships that we've built with CIPS, to give you a sense, brought in just shy of about £1 million in new income from a zero standing start over a 2-year period. And that resulted in 11 new content partnerships for CIPS. And that's also led on to other commercial arrangements such as training and learning alliances, new membership retention and acquisition, which they've been able to directly correlate back to the salary survey information. So these content partnerships have enabled CIPS to do quite a lot, and that program's gone on to develop and change as they have and as they've built out their knowledge centre more themselves. So a good example of where they spotted that their knowledge centre wasn't working for them anymore, and they had the confidence to restructure it and take it forward with the team, the B2B team, to help them do that. but it's been a really strong example of how to do that. And I think they even might have run an award on it as well, which was really exciting to see that occur. That's my last example for today. So thank you all very much for joining us. We'd love to offer anyone that wants to a quick 30-minute chat with our commercial team. So if you've got some opportunities that you think might be relevant or that you'd love to talk to our team about and bounce ideas off of, just drop me an email and we'll set up a time to do that. If you've got ideas or you're trying to value something or you've got a sponsor that you need to go back to a proposition with them on, or you're looking to readjust a tender or supplier relationship, anything in that commercial area, feel free to reach out to us and we can jump on a call with you and have a little bit of a chat about it and see how we might be able to give you some steer and some hints and tips. We've also, for those of you that are starting out in sponsorship or partnership, we've also recently launched the Sponsorship Toolkit, specifically for associations, societies and clubs. And it really covers the basics and a range of key areas. So really helping you with everything that you need to plan, develop and deliver successful sponsorships. So head on over and have a look at the Sponsorship Toolkit as well. It's much more at the initial level, but it's got a lot of training and support and advice, all based on the B2B way and how we approach it. So yeah, head on over and have a look at that if you're a little bit more newer into starting partnerships and developing that yourself. Thank you all very much for joining us today. I hope it's been useful and we've been able to share a little bit about how we do it here at B2B. Do feel free to reach out to us if you've got any further questions or if you'd like to have a chat more with the commercial team or even our consulting team here at B2B if you've got a more broader membership challenge or strategic challenge. We've got a team of experts that do that on a day-to-day basis as well. Thank you very much.